Hi, this video will help you with formula creation. A lot of times I start off by just doing the basics with formula creation and going through the different formulas. I do simple formulas like 2 plus 2. We'll do 5 minus 3. We'll do multiply, so 4 times 2. And we'll do a division problem. And a lot of times when I'm doing these things, I often ask the students what the answer is called for an addition problem, sum, do a division subtraction problem, difference, multiplication is product, and then the quotient is the answer for this division problem. Now remember, division problems are essentially a fraction, and because we don't have the funny little division marks that we've been taught as children, we have to use a fraction. Remember, it always goes numerator first and then denominator to get your answer. And I often tell my students to make sure they do a larger number that can be divided into with a smaller number that can be divided into it on the bottom. So I go through that. We also go through the other order of operators, the PEMDAS, whatever the please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And we do something simple like 5 plus 3 minus 2 to show them left to right, or order of operators that are on the same level, because you could either add the two numbers together and subtract, or subtract the last two numbers and then add. And then we talk about order of operators with operators on different levels. And we're going to use the same things, 5 plus 3, but this time we're going to do multiply times 2. And you can see 11, because you're going to multiply the 3 times the 2 and then add to 5. Then we go a little bit further, trying to build into that algebraic idea, and I often tell students, just because we're in Excel doesn't mean that we can forget all of the formula creation tools. And in this case, we want to use a nested parenthesis to separate the multiplication from the addition. And as you can see, we had to put the multiplication sign in there because this will not work. You will get a little error message and it will help you fix it. But to rid yourself of that little hassle, you can just put the addition or the multiplication sign in there so you get the answer. These are all using constants. Constants are specific numbers. I often bring my students back and I'll say, what about if you're going to use cell reference? So what you can do is you can add two different cells. For instance, I'm going to click on these two different cells and add them up. And the great thing about this is if one of these numbers changes, the formula result also changes. This is called cell reference. One last order of operators, or PEMDAS, that we do have is exponents. And just because you're working with exponents doesn't mean you can't start a formula. And only time you start a formula is with an equal sign. We'll just do 5 hat 2, and the hat is shift of the number 6, so we're doing an exponent of 5 squared. When we do other things, we go further with this. We look at formula creation in Excel with functions. The one function that most of us work with is sum. I often do this with students in a crawl, walk, run ratio. So the first thing is you type in the function, and then inside the parenthesis, you're going to nest the range of cells that you want to put in there. So let's do something like A1 colon A4. And the colon really represents the idea of through. It's saying A1, you're going to add up A1 through A4, and you get the answer. Some students will say, well, I want to use my mouse with this. So we put in equal sum, and we put a parenthesis, and we just drag over top of the cells, and ultimately it gives us the range that we need. Close up the range, hit enter. That's where we're walking. And now to run. A lot of students will already know this, but if you go up here to the AutoSum button and click it, it will actually do all of the typing for you and enter in a range. But even though it entered in a range doesn't mean you can't select another range and keep selecting ranges. Make sure the students are using this white blocked plus sign to select their range. Don't let them do the autofill. Don't let them do something else. Ultimately, select the range that they want and hit enter. So what we're using here, we're using cell reference instead of the constants, and we're building formulas to run a couple of spreadsheets that we have. The first one, this one here. If you have something like this where you want to add up all of your totals to the right, you can just select the destination, hit the AutoSum button, and the numbers add up. Click the Undo button, and ultimately, if you want to do the row below it, you select all of the destination plus the numbers that you want to add up, click the AutoSum, and the numbers will be added down and across, and you can see there's a total. Just a little helping idea. We've done a lot of work with addition. How about multiplication? Neat little spreadsheet here on being able to multiply stock prices with quantities of stocks. Nothing but a multiplication problem. Multiply the quantity. And I often talk about Q times P. This is a great thing for economics. It's a great thing for any type of business class, for people to understand that your revenue, your cost, your whatever will be Q times P. And then there's autofill. And because of the relationship of these cells, it's called a relative reference. When you drag it down, it will copy row 6 instead of row 5. And it'll go down and down and down. One last spreadsheet. Then you can do something simple like a balance sheet like this guy here. All right. So you have some addition problems. You have a subtraction problem. See this guy here, fixed assets, that's a subtraction problem. So I can do this, minus, and then I can't click on this cell for some reason, so I'll just type it in, and I'll just do C14. And I hit enter, and then I can go down here, and I can do AutoSum. But this time, I'm going to do AutoSum with a little bit different because I have non-adjacent cells here. So I'm going to hold down Control and click on the next cell. And once again, I can't click on this cell, but you can see what's happening up here. See this little thing with the comma and down here? I can just type in a comma and I can go C16 because it's the next cell below it. And you can see it actually kind of highlighted in purple there. So I'm going to add up C11, C15, and C16. The comma identifies the word and. So I'm going to add up C11, C15, C16. Hit enter. There you go. Over here I have my current liabilities, so I'm going to add up that column, hit enter. I have my long-term liabilities, which essentially is just these two numbers, so add those two up. And then I'm going to equate them all. So once again, AutoSum, and I'm going to click on the 4200 first, hold down Control, click on the 1200, and then once again, I can't click on the formula below it, but I know it's right below it, and this is column F, and that's 13, so it's got to be 14. So I put a comma in there, and I go F14, and hit enter, and my numbers equate. Really understanding the rules of math, really understanding how these things work can help your students understand what's going on with calculations in Excel, because that's what it's all about.